distinguished guests, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, very good morning and thank you for inviting me here to speak at this forum. And after listening to Vincent just now, I'm not sure that I can hold your attention, but I will try. Because your mind will be going through some of the many important questions that he has posed. Is it working? Well, this is a very important seminar and forum series. It's all about cities, and I think we all know that cities are the critical component of any new development in any new city, because most of the world's population lives in cities, and they're expected to shoulder many of the responsibilities of creating jobs, building infrastructure, supplying goods and services, providing wealth, and so on. And many of you as leaders of future cities will have vital roles to play in this exercise. As somebody who has played a part in Singapore's urban development in various capacities, both private and public, over the last 40 years, I'm honored to have this opportunity to share with you Singapore's urban journey so far and the key principles that have guided us in our journey of realizing our vision for our city. And I would like to believe that Singapore's success is not a happy accident, but it is the result of long-term planning, of strong leadership, and good governance. But let me take you a little bit back into the history of Singapore. We became self-governing in 1959, and we became an independent in 1965 after we broke from Malaysia. And at that time, we had a very young, very unskilled population, mostly uneducated migrants, many from southern China, but also from India and other places. Unemployment rate was 15%, almost 20%. Birth rate, about 4.5%. Something that we would like to have today, but at that time, no. And living conditions were very poor. And I remember I used to stay in a shop house, something like what you see in the second picture, 10 to 15 people from various families, and we used to take turns to sleep on the beds. So when others went out to work or to school, we would sleep, and vice versa. So that's where I think the vision of our founding Prime Minister, of Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, for Singapore that would be able to break out and become a first world metropolis from a third world country, and to do that within 1 year. I think that was extremely important. And he believed that that island city-state of Singapore in Southeast Asia, if it had to survive, it could not be ordinary. It had to be extraordinary. It had to be different. So he thought, if we could maintain social order, if we could educate people, maintain peace with neighbors, gain the confidence of investors by upholding the rule of law, then Singapore had a chance to succeed. And he had this bold vision of turning Singapore from third world into first world in one generation. Singapore today, I believe, has achieved some of what he has sought in his vision. It is an attractive global metropolis, widely regarded as one of the most livable cities in the world, demonstrating that high-rise, high-density living does not have to compromise on the quality of life. So, how did we achieve this transformation? And let me share with you some of the key principles that have influenced Singapore's urban planning and governance approach. And the first is really this idea of thinking long-term. This guiding principle has allowed us to adhere closely to our vision and consistently to this vision. It has enabled our leaders, our civil servants, our planners to formulate policies and develop projects, good projects, that could have been before their time or that may not have been politically popular at that time, but would bring long-term benefits to the country as a whole. So one example of this that I can cite is our greening program. We started the greening program actually just after independence, 50 years ago. And if you visit Singapore, visitors to Singapore actually quite often comment on the lushness of our greenery. And on the road from the Changi Airport to the city center, you will see that the expressway is lined with mature angsana trees and rain trees with full canopies. And so are our streets. And even the rooftops of high-rise buildings, you can see greenery and gardens. And this is something that we've been working on for over 50 years to become a garden city. And today we are taking it one step further to become a city in a garden. It's not a play on words. It's something that we take very seriously because the idea is to create a sense of spaciousness and greenery to soften the harshness of living in a very compact urban landscape. So when we develop new towns and estates, we make sure that we provide space for gardens and parks, incorporate them early into our neighborhoods. When trees make way for development, we make sure that the lost greenery is replaced through provision of new landscape areas on the ground as well as in the sky, in the air, accessible sky gardens, for example. The population has increased over the last many years, but we have managed to actually expand our green cover. So, for example, when we increase our population from 2.7 million to today to 5 million people, we have been able to expand our greenery to almost 50%. Then there's the Park Connector Network. The Park Connector Network is a pedestrian-friendly as well as a cyclist-friendly network that links up our park spaces island-wide. It's a very Asian concept of linking up all your small courtyard gardens to create this continuous spatial experiential journey. And the plan is to expand this network. If you can see, it's a network today of about 200 kilometers. We intend to expand it to about 360 kilometers, including a round island route. So the deep red line that you see there is actually a round island route of about 350 kilometers, which you can cycle and jog in future right around Singapore. And considering that we're only 40 kilometers east-west and 20 north-south, I think that's something that we can all look forward to. And the vision is to put every household, or 90% of the households, within 400 meters walking distance from a park or a park connector. This is the Gardens by the Bay, in the heart of the city, on prime, reclaimed waterfront land. We set aside 100 hectares of prime land in the city center to build a new park. This is our new CBD, the new Marina Bay area. And the purpose of this really is to create a green lung right in the heart of downtown for the enjoyment of not just this generation, but generations to come. And also to capture the essence of Singapore as a tropical city in a garden. Apart from a long-term view, a balanced approach to development has been critical to success. In the early days, unemployment was high, job creation was priority. It would have been very easy for the government of the day to say, let's forget about the environment, let's create jobs first. But again, recognizing our small land area, our lack of hinterland, as Lee Kuan Yew put it, if you pollute one part of Singapore, you pollute the whole of it. So we couldn't afford to clean up after polluting it. And that's the reason why every year we commemorate Clean and Green Week, where the Prime Minister, all the ministers, civil servants, grassroots leaders, etc., are out in full force to remind ourselves of this very basic fact. Environmental considerations were very much a part of our land use planning to ensure that developments are properly sited. This is a slide showing Jurong Industrial Estate is to the west of Singapore. We grouped all our heavy industries in the west away from populated areas. We make sure that all factories, before they start work, put in anti-pollution measures, landscape their grounds, plant trees, etc., before they could commence operations, before the EDB or the Jurong Town Corporation would give them a license to start. Another example, Semakau Island. Semakau Island is actually an island created out of rubbish, from nothing. It's the world's first offshore landfill island, created entirely from the sea for the disposal of incineration ash. We incinerate all our rubbish, but the ash, the bottom ash, is then transported to this island, and this is what we have created. It's not only clean and free from smell, but it's also become, surprisingly, a natural habitat for marine and bird life. And so today, Semakau landfill is not only an active landfill site, but it's also a scenic island where nature continues to thrive, and bird watchers, in fact, not just from Singapore, from around the world, actually go there to count the number of types of birds that have arrived on this island and built their home there. Another basic tenet that we have learned along the way is how to build flexibility in our plans. So we plan comprehensively, but no plan is perfect, just as no future is predictable. And this is so I'll give you some illustrations of how we have evolved our plans over the years. 1958, we developed the first master plan. It assumed a slow rate of urban growth, social change, but as it turned out, like all things, we were wrong. Our projections were wrong. We grew much faster after self-government in 1959, and so this 1958 master plan was quickly out of date. Developed new one. The next one was 1971, developed by a team of UN and local experts, which mapped out this new vision of Singapore. New towns linked by transport infrastructure, recreational spaces along all over the island. So some of the things that you see in Singapore today, Changi Airport, the mass rapid transit system, the new towns around the central catchment area, all these were direct outcomes of the strategies in Concept Plan 1971. And by the late 80s, again, development, most of the basic problems that plagued us, jobs, transport, housing, were addressed. But major changes were taking place. Declining fertility, shift towards knowledge-based industries, rising aspirations. And this resulted in another concept plan, which is the 1991 concept plan. One of the key outcomes of this plan was the development guide plans, where every land parcel in Singapore, the land use, the development potential were clearly demarcated and made available for everybody to see. So Singapore's planning history is a process of constant learning, adjusting, refining along the way. As one of my predecessors, Mr. Dhanabalan, once said, it would be a mistake to say that it was all planned. What is key is that we plan a little, but when the environment changes, we react very fast, we seize the opportunities, and then we fly. Singapore learns from the experiences of many countries. We study assiduously best practices from all over the world. And then we adapt them to our unique physical and socio-economic environment. And this has led to many policy innovations and practices, which I will go through very quickly. First of all, water. Water in Singapore is life and death. For a long time, we relied on water, rainwater collection in the reservoirs, as well as water imported from Malaysia. But in order to enhance our water security and also to meet increasing demand, we expanded our local catchment areas, and we created a whole new network of reservoirs and waterways to try to capture every single drop of precious rainwater. And we built a reservoir right in the heart of the city, so right in the heart of the new downtown Marina Bay, created a barrage and built Marina Bay Reservoir. Marina Barrage now is not just a barrage, but it's also become a very popular recreational area for our residents for the weekends. Water supply, as I said, is critical. So we rely on rainwater, we rely on water from Malaysia in the past. We are now adding 2 new sources of water, 2 new taps, as it were. Reclaimed water and desalinated water. And we've been monitoring new water technologies for many, many years. And now, finally, when the economics is right, when the technology is right, we've been able to harness this and create what we call new water, reclaimable water. And that is now going to be used more and more, especially for industrial purposes. Again, not forgetting livability, we've changed or modified our drainage network to become recreational spaces. So we're converting waterways, reservoirs, canals into public spaces. Kallang River, for example, used to be on the top left-hand corner, just a canal. Today, it is now a meandering river. Kids play there, fishes, etc. On a bigger scale, we are trying to create a high-density, water-sustainable precinct. But no matter how well we plan and develop, the company, the government, the country cannot produce results unless the people support and sustain the work of the government. And this is the reason why we have to always have the backing of the people and involve them as stakeholders in our nation building. And one of the areas and one of the ways we do this is through our public housing home ownership program. It has been a major pillar of our nation building efforts. It not only provides affordable housing, but also nurtures a sense of identity and belonging. And of course, in a very practical way, it provides assets that appreciate in value. As Singapore develops, each person who owns a house sees his asset appreciate as well. So everyone has a stake in Singapore. 80% of the population live in public housing. In fact, up to the 80th to 85th percentile of Singaporeans live in public housing. 90% of them are homeowners. And as proud homeowners, they look after their neighborhoods, and at the same time, they are involved in consultations as to how their neighborhoods are developed. So what are the challenges ahead? I think, like Hong Kong, Singapore also faces new challenges. How do we instill a sense of belonging? As society becomes more affluent, aspirations change. Basic needs have been fulfilled. The traditional top-down approach is not welcome. People want to be more engaged. People want to have a greater say in affairs of the country. And with social media, citizens are able to communicate their views and thoughts more readily. So governance is becoming more challenging. And there is a need to better engage with the public. So there's, again, in Singapore, like in Hong Kong, always this struggle to accommodate a growing population, more land for development, and yet at the same time, how do we protect our greenery? So recently there was this big debate about Bukit Brown Cemetery. How do we keep the cemetery, but at the same time, how do we build more roads, more housing? Another challenge, population. We had population debate, very vigorous one. How do we get more people? How do we have more people in Singapore to sustain our economy? Yet birth rates are down. Immigration means more problems. Foreigners already make up 1/3 of Singapore's population. How are we going to make sure that Singapore maintains its identity with more foreigners? So the same thing, I guess, happens in Hong Kong as in Singapore. Vincent talked about some of the issues of mainland Chinese coming here, about shortage of schools, places, hospital beds, baby milk powder, and so on. So I believe these are common challenges faced by many cities, in particular Hong Kong and Singapore. We are similar in many ways. And how do we balance the needs of our local residents? How do we look after our own citizens without going through this ugly path of being xenophobic? How do we foster a more tolerant and harmonious society? So these are the questions which both of us will have to face, and these are the questions which I think many of you in this room will have to face. And Singapore, we will continue to be part of this process of sharing our ideas. We have, for example, the Center for Livable Cities, which I started, which helps to share our ideas with some of the city mayors and officials from many other countries. We have the World City Summit, which is a platform for exchange of ideas. And really drawing on long-term planning, good governance, effective implementation, we have been able to transform Singapore over the last 50 years. We've turned our problems into solutions. We've turned vision into reality. But we learn from other cities, we adapt, we implement to suit our circumstances. So I hope that you too can learn from all these experiences, adapt them to your circumstances, develop your own solutions. Thank you. I wish you all the best in turning your vision into reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that most inspiring Singapore story.